Golly, what an intro, man. Welcome back to Tall Tales with Taco Bell. My name is Mitch Taco Bell. I will be your host for today's show, and actually really excited about this one. Mike Van Carr, retired CWO4. He's a Marine Corps sniper. He will be the second sniper I've had on the show. The first one was literally the first Marine Corps sniper, Joe Beaver. And we'll probably have a story about that later on. But without further ado, I'd like to bring Mike on. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. Just a point of clarification. While I was on active duty, my name on Facebook, I changed to Van instead of Carr. Then when I retired, I switched it to my real last name. So Van was my Facebook name and Carr's my real last name.
I didn't know that. All right. Yeah, sneaky, man. Well, you know what's funny? You're my second sniper. And the first show didn't go well because internet problems. Turns out Beaver lives out in the middle of nowhere, and he's like got dial-up speeds. And he goes, "What's an internet speed check?" You know, he's 78, and I'm just like, "Oh, this is not going to happen. Sorry, folks." But what's funny is Beaver was the first Marine Corps sniper, MOS-wise.
Oh, nice.
Because when he went over to Vietnam, he'd shot so well in boot camp, they said, "Hey, we want you to try out for this unit we're putting together." And so when he did the unit by alphabetical order, Beaver, he was the first guy in the class. and this is the best part. That I had a guy that I knew, he owned a gun shop. And he always told me, "Yeah, I was, everybody's Marine Corps sniper. You know what I mean? Recon. I mean, everybody's Army, they're special forces." So this guy leans over at lunch one day and he goes, "Before I was a pilot, I was a enlisted guy." I'm like, "No, I didn't know that." He goes, "Yeah, I was a Marine Corps sniper in Vietnam." No kidding. Wow. Hey, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then I have lunch on Wednesday with another guy who tells me about he was a recon guy in Vietnam, got Silver Star, and then I have lunch on Friday with a bunch of guys, and Beaver's in there, and Beaver does the same thing. "Hey, before I joined the Army, became a helicopter pilot. I was in Vietnam. I was a Marine Corps sniper." I'm like, "Really?" "Yeah, I got 2 Silver Stars." And I'm thinking, you know what? These guys are so full of shit. These are guys I admire. So I ordered their records. About a month later, all their records show up. And the guy that I would have said is so funny and so full of shit is Beaver. Beaver, designated MOS sniper, 2 Silver Stars. I'm like, holy shit. I wanted him on the show so bad, but like I said, the internet problems. So to have an actual combat sniper, this is just really cool. Real quick, take us back. How did you apply for it? What happened?
Well, so when I enlisted, I got to my first unit, which was 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines. I was in a rifle company, golf company. We did on my first deployment. So I'm going to get to me becoming a sniper or why I did it or whatever. And we were off the coast of Lebanon, getting ready to go in to rescue this guy called Colonel Higgins. That was 1989. It was our rifle platoon was what they called the Sparrowhawk platoon. Have you ever heard of that?
No, is it like a fast?
Well, no. So it's just within the MU, they had our company, golf company was a helo company, and hotel company. Back then we had 4 rifle companies, not 3 like they have now.
Right.
So golf and hotel company were both helo companies. Hotel was airfield seizures. Ours was a mixture of stuff. So first platoon was like the trap platoon. Second platoon was ours was the Sparrowhawk platoon. Third platoon was the Neo platoon. And then if you come together as a company, we're called the Bald Eagle. So Sparrowhawk and Bald Eagle are just a reinforced, like for Sparrowhawk platoon or Bald Eagle reinforced company sent in to do whatever.
Right.
So we were used to operating by ourselves, I guess is the point. And they didn't have the Maritime Special Purpose Force back then. So they had the Force Recon platoon. They married us up with them. And then they also flew in what I assume was Delta Force, because it was blacked out birds, dudes with beards. And we were getting ready to go in to rescue this Colonel Higgins, who was a Marine colonel that got captured doing a UN mission. Later on got killed, or got not killed, got executed.
I remember that. What year was that?
That was 89.
Yeah. I just got in commission in 88. I remember that.
Yeah, so that's why I went to boot camp in 88. So as we're waiting to go in to get on the birds, these two dudes walk in with these large mountain packs with this gun I'd never seen before, this huge scope on it. There were, camis, boonie cover, Israeli boots on. And I'm like, who are those dudes? And they're like, oh, those are the snipers. I was like, F, I want to do that. So we end up loading up some of the birds. Some of the birds took off to go in to rescue this guy, and they called us back and don't really know what happened, whether he got moved or something else.
Right.
But that was the first
if I remember
time.
Right. He kept taking the same route to work, and they knew on the particular day at this time he never varied his drive, and they snagged him. Right.
To be honest, I don't remember how he got captured. I just remember I was Lance Corporal Carr in a fire team, and then my fire team leader got in trouble in Israel when we were on Libo. And then I became the fire team leader. I was like, yeah, this is cool. No more fire watch. And then they're like, oh, we're going into Lebanon. You have these guys to take care of and worry about. I was like, oh, I'm a 19-year-old in charge of these dudes to make sure they don't get killed, going in and rescue this guy with Force Recon and either Delta Force or SEALs or whatever. That was like the big eye opener for me. Like, this isn't a joke.
Yeah, but what's cool is 19 years old. They Army wouldn't give that. I mean, they might give that to a staff sergeant or a sergeant or something, and here you are at 19 with that sort of responsibility on your shoulders. Yeah, pretty amazing.
So fast forward, we go on the next deployment to we did Panama. In between that deployment, we got on the MEU just after we were locked onto the MEU, and then like a few days later, Saddam invaded Kuwait. Oh wow! So they're like, we're going to keep you with the MEU. We're going to have you guys do the MEU workup, the MEU workup cycle. And we're going to have you guys fly behind enemy lines because they thought it was going to be a long, drawn-out thing. We want you to know on your path of your training, you're going to stay with that. So we did our whole MEU. We went into ended up going into northern Iraq. But after that deployment, I got home and I was like home on leave. And it was like December. I was like, what do I want to do around here? And I'm looking around and I was like, nothing really excites me. So when I got back, a staff sergeant that was the machine gun section leader had just taken over the snipers. And one of my buddies who ended up getting killed on a helo crash a couple of years later was over there. He's like, dude, you need to come over. So I took the indoc, passed the indoc. I was their number one pick. In the end, at the end of the whole indoc, there were 6 of us. 2 guys they said no to, and I was the first guy they said yes to as a corporal. So me and a couple others, they said yes, and went over the sniper platoon.
And what was it like? I mean, what was the training?
The indoc
or the movies and stuff.
The indoc or the training itself?
The indoc. Try the indoc.
So the indoc, each platoon has their own idea of what the indoc is, and maybe I'm biased because it was the indoc that I went through, but it was more geared towards let me see how you are as an infantryman, let alone let me evaluate you on sniper skills that you've never been trained on. So we did on Tuesday afternoon, we did like 100 question basic infantry test, and then Wednesday morning we had to be there at like 06 with a pack and all that. We did a PFT followed by I can't remember, it was a 3 or 5 mile, 50-pound pack run, followed up by a 00 course for time.
Wow.
And once that was done, they're like, all right, you have the rest of the morning off, be back to the platoon area by noon. And then we did a day land nav course that took us we were in the HP area, 8th Marines close by the PX and all that, all the way out to the front gate for land nav points. Some of it was like an intersection, some of it was like a little a traditional land nav box. And then we got back, turned your card in. So I'd be back at 2000 because it was, they wanted to make sure it was dark before we went out, and they just switched cards. It wasn't like, oh, it's night land nav, we're going to go shorter distances. It was the same thing going all the way out.
Holy crap.
Because again, that's what that's what they're evaluating for. Can you nav at night, not just these short things, but these long distances? Yeah. So we did that, finished that. Next day, they said we'd be back at 06 or 08, whatever it was. So now this is Thursday, and they usually when they would do this point, we would go out and do patrol and stuff. Usually they do it in 4-man teams because that's what the platoon operated in. But there was only 6 left at that point. So they're all right. We're going to make one big team, and Corporal Carr, you're the senior guy. You're going to lead. You're going to be the team leader. So they issued me an order. I wrote a quick order, did all that stuff. At that point, I'd already been to combat squad leader school in Okinawa. I had some other courses that helped me with order writing and all that. Issued an order. We walked to LZ Sparrow back then. Now that's where the Wallace Creek area where 8th Marines is and all that now. But that used to be an LZ, and in it they had 2 down birds or 2 Hulks. We got in the back of one. We did we're flying in. You've landed, and we got out of the back of the bird, simulating we're out of the back of the bird. And then we started a patrol. We were supposed to get eyes on the Wallace Creek Bridge that goes from, as you're coming in, the main drag coming in Lejeune over the Wallace Creek. And then they had 2 guys there. So as we were patrolling out, they'd hit us, to evaluate our reactions and all that. We got to our ORP. And at this point, I'm making all the decisions, in my mind, because I'm the team leader. I do this, whatever. So it's like, all right, I'm going to stay here, and me and one guy are going to stay here, holding down the ORP. We're going to send 2 guys as security, so they were going to kind of come out here. The other 2 would come through their corridor, get eyes on the bridge, fill out a salute report off the bridge, and then come back. And then they come through that corridor again. So if they're getting engaged, they could cross their fires and cover them as they're coming through and then pull back, was my thought process. So they did that. They went up, they did their thing, they came back, and they're like, the whole time we had a guy from the sniper platoon with us evaluating, taking notes or whatever. Right. He's like, hey, they're leaving they're getting ready to leave the ORP. He's like, bullshit. They never made it they never got eyes on the target. We're like, I asked the other guy, I was like, did you see it? And he's like, yeah, I saw it. And I was like, okay, yeah, they were there. Oh, BS. Okay. So they had them go back. So they redid the whole process again, but this time they took the radio with them, and they're sitting in their hide site, if you will. And they're like, they could see one guy, Miller's smoking, he's inhaling, he's exhaling. He's looking in the wrong direction. He's like, still looking in the wrong direction. And then they stopped calling in. He's like, shit, they see me, because it was him and another guy on the bridge, and like, they see us. So they pulled back without, seeing over the radio, they're pulling back. Yeah. They link back up with us. We account for everybody. I give them a direction. We step off. We're about, I don't know, 300 or 400 meters into our movement back to the LZ. We get a call on the radio like, hey, when are you guys going to leave? Say again? They're like, well, and then they stopped calling on us, and they called the guy from the platoon. He's like, dude, we've already left. We're like 400 meters into the movement back. They're like, what? We didn't even see them. We didn't see them leaving. We were looking, and so we made our way back to the helos. Once we got back to the helo at Sparrow, they let us just admin walk back to the battalion. Back at the battalion, like, all right, be back at. Let me step back. At one point, once they figured out, they started hitting us, and seeing us, our reaction to contact and all. Yeah. And as we're going back, I'll be like, break contact, north, 12 o'clock, 200 meters, whatever. And I find okay, they just keep on bumping ahead a couple hundred meters. So I was like, break contact, 12 o'clock, 600 meters. And at that point, we leaped past them. We regathered, and then they're like waiting for us in an ambush. By then, we were almost at Sparrow, and we out, someone outfoxed them again. Got back, and then
the snipers, they weren't pissed.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they were pissed. Because they're like, where they at? Because they're calling the guy like, where you guys at? We're at this point, like he's like, dude, we're way past that. What? We're way shit. All right.
Did you ever work with those guys later on?
Yeah, some of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever tell them about that? That was us, man.
Well, no, man. They all knew. I mean, it was because there were guys from the platoon. Yeah. Gotcha. So when we got back, they're like, all right, hey, good job. How did you get out of that? Like they said, Miller, the guy that was smoking, he was a recon reserve guy. And then when the Gulf War kicked off, he was in the platoon leader course. And he's like, yeah, I got to go with my force recon. They're like, dude, no, they need lieutenants more than they need these recon guys. So we're going to have you just stay in the platoon leader course. He's like, oh, yeah, well, screw you. I'm going to go on active duty. I'm going to go to an infantry battalion and go to war. And it came to 2-8, which ended up not going to war.
Yeah.
You know, but so on that, he came to my platoon. We became really good friends. And then after I got over there, we ended up, you know, in roommates on the next deployment to Okinawa in the sniper platoon. But when we get back, they're like, all right, be back at like 2000. We got back. They issued another order. Hey, there's a down pilot and it's down by this road. And you're going to make your movement there. You got to be there by 22 or 2300. So we made our movement. They kept on hitting us to make us late. We got there at like 23, like 15, or it might have been less than that. It might have been like 23:05. When pilots moved on to his next point, which is across the highway and over here and stuff. And so we picked up and moved over there. Didn't find him. Like, hey, he's been extracted by other agencies. You need to make your way back to friendly lines. So as we started,
get hit the whole way back.
We did. So like, okay, so hey, you know, you're hit. You're down. What are you going to do? So we stopped, held security. One guy picked him up. Another guy grabbed his pack and moved, 100 meters. Like, all right, he's alive again. We went through with everybody in the team getting hit. And then they went to 2 people being hit and flip-flopping it through the whole team. And then they went to half the team being hit. So you have to carry your pack, their pack, and them, you know. And at this point, we're just laughing. Like, all right, what's next? There's going to be 4 people hit, and, you know. And it was just, you know.
Go steal a car.
Yeah. We were just, you know, just laughing and running on the way back. And
so you make it through all that. You get into sniper training. What was your favorite weapon? What did you train on to begin with?
The M40, really the M40A1, and so that's what you.
308, right?
It is, yes. So once you're in the platoon, the focus is, you know, or the focus was getting the next guys into school. We went through and so 2 things. The team I got assigned to, they're like, because I was one of the senior corporals, and they're like, hey, but I hadn't been through school. They're like, hey, we want you to be Team 4's team leader. But it had Miller, who'd been through ARS and was in Force Recon. And I was like, how about this? How about I be his ATL and learn some before I go in there and just fumble through some of this stuff? So Team 4 had no snipers in it for that deployment. But we had the team leader was a 3rd Force guy. The point man was a guy that jumped into Grenada with the Rangers. Oh, wow. The RTO was a Black Russian who spoke fluent Russian, fluent German, grew up in was it West Germany? That's the friendly side of Germany or whatever.
Yeah, West Germany.
And then there was me, and all those guys had gold wings, and then there was me, and I was like, "The hell do I bring? I'm just a rifle company guy."
You were scuba cool.
I had nothing though. No, I was just So I say that to say that we were the recon team, if you will. If they had more of a recon connotation, vice is a shooting connotation, they would send our team. We had 3 203s and assault in our team, so they'd always push us out further than the other teams because we had more armament, and the theory was we could protect ourselves a little bit better.
Yeah.
While in Okinawa, we did an in-house sniper school, and the thing that I guess that got me, that impressed upon me the most was, well, 2 things. One, if the battalion doesn't know where we're at or we have no comms with them, we're a liability to them. They can't engage stuff because they don't want to kill us. So always staying in comms. And then 2 was shooting a direct fire weapon was your last resort. Always try to call for fire, call back or whatever. Because you might call in like, hey, they know they're coming, but we're just checking along the box how they're coming. We don't want to change their path because further over here, they might have something set up to kind of defeat them, kind of suck them in, but we're just there tracking them along. But if we engage them, that's going to change their path that the battalion might know that they're going on. So that was always impressed upon me, that shooting your rifle was the last resort. And again, I got to shoot the rifle on the deployment for training, but we never had one in our team.
God, did you ever watch that movie Jarhead? It's probably like somebody asking me, "Hey, did you ever watch that movie with Denzel Washington where the airplane turns upside down. I'm like, yeah, watch that. Is that realistic? Hell, I don't know if he'd be able to make that, but I know that we weren't snorting cocaine off some hot flight attendant's butt.
Yeah.
Holy crap. But Jarhead,
Ah,
people, non-military people always ask me about Jarhead, and I'm not a infantry guy, but to me, some of the antics that the guys would do and probably the betrayal of some of the officers was probably realistic in my view.
Yeah.
But what about you? Did you get a chuckle out of that one?
Yeah, I vaguely remember that movie, but yeah, there's definitely colorful stuff that's happened, in the field or not in the field, back in the rear, and,
Right.
And then specifically for the sniper platoon, back then there wasn't a platoon commander. That's like you think of traditionally as the platoon commander. The battalion S2 was the sniper platoon commander. So when they look at the TO, the table of organization, they sit there and say, why is the snipers in H&S? They're a weapon system. Just put them over in weapons company. Well, the TO is there because it's tying the snipers, which is the battalion's recon, if you will, to the intelligence. Literally, your platoon commander was the intelligence officer.
Oh, that makes sense. Never would have ththought of that.
Yeah.
Now, was he a sniper? Did he know?
No,
tactics? You guys take him out and teach him?
Ours was a really good, really good, smart guy. I want to say he retired as a colonel, but he knew how to employ us, so he didn't necessarily need to know how he snooped and pooped, if you will. He just knew how to assign us the missions and all that.
And you were East Coast the whole time, right?
I was, yes.
Did you have any? What was your first combat experience pre 9/11?
Well, other than, and again, so I guess the real first combat was in Mogadishu.
Oh wow!
Fast forward to I left 2-8. We went to, and then I went to Fast Company, and then there my platoon sergeant, that was my sniper platoon sergeant, went to Fast, and I ended up getting out of recruiting duty. Thank God. That was amazing.
Oh, you did recruiting duty before you went over there?
No, I did not.
You got out of it.
I got out of it. I was at sniper school. I came back from sniper school, and the career planner's like, Sergeant Carr, where have you been? You need to fill out this screening sheet. And I was like, what's that for? He's like, it's for recruiting duty. I was like, I don't want to go to recruiting duty. He's like, no. You're on the HIS list. You're going. You need to fill this out. So I filled out the paperwork and all that, and he's like, dude, they're gonna love you. You might as well pick what class you want to go to because you're going. You're not getting out of this. And everybody has the stories of the recruiter screwed him over. Mine gave me exactly what I want. Actually, the day the Air War started for the Gulf War, I was babysitting his kids because his wife was out and he was overseas. So I had a good relationship with them. I'm sitting there like, I don't want to go to recruiting duty. I just graduated sniper school. I want to do this stuff. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And at sniper school, I get bit by a tick, and I had like a dot with a circle around it, which is the telltale signs of Lyme disease. Ooh. So it came back negative. I just didn't let the recruiter screening team know that. So I was the first guy in. He's like, look at my paper. He's like, oh, sniper. Oh, yes, you're in. He's like, do you know of anything that can preclude you from going to from recruit duty? And I was like, I'm waiting for my Lyme disease test results. He's like, he bent over, reached in his briefcase, got the stamp, and he's like, bam, you got a big med DQ on the top of my package. He's like, hey, here's my card. If you get cleared, give me a call and I'll get you into the next class. Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I'll be right on if I get passed.
Oh, come on, man. Recruiting school is blast.
Well, again, young sergeant, do you want to go to recruit duty or do you want to go to sniper platoon?
No, I want to go shoot people. Damn Skippy, man. I'm going to employ my weapon.
Yeah. So I leave, and the career planner's like, so what class you going to? And I was like, I'm not going. He's like, what? How'd you get out of it? I'm not saying shit in here. I'm leaving. I'll talk to you back in the battalion. So
you guys jump on the ship and you go down. Was this in 90? What year was this? 94?
So this was 93. This what I was just talking about happened. I'm still in 2-8. Now I'm trying to find a place because, like, hey man, you've done 3 deployments. You're coming up on 5 years in the battalion. You got to go somewhere. And my sniper platoon sergeant from the last deployment goes to Fast Company. He's like, hey man, they need fleet sergeants. They got guys that are great up here that can, clear a room but they had issues in the woods. We need to have like some fleet, NCOs come up here. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm in, and it was a little heartbreak getting back and, like, hey, put an A form in, like, oh, they're over their TO. I don't know what you tell me. They're calling me saying they need sergeants, and it took their first sergeant to call, like, hey, we're by name requesting this guy. He's going to send an A form in today, and that's how they got me in there. I was supposed to go up there to teach sniping, but when I got there, the platoon, or not the platoon commander, the company commander, Major Polovich, ended up retiring as I want to say a full-blown colonel. He's like, I want you to know what you're supporting. So I'm going to send you out with the next platoon going to Somalia. Break my heart.
Yeah.
Send me out. But so 2-8 got on ships in the summer I guess it was the fall of 93. Uh-huh. And I had just got my orders in from Fast Company, to go there. I was like, but we're sending 2 companies and the whole sniper platoon to Haiti to operate. And I was like, hey, Sergeant so-and-so, you haven't seen me. I'm leaving with these guys. So we got on ships and we went to Haiti, or we were off the coast of Haiti. We did a bunch of rehearsals.
That was for the Haitian invasion. I was down there. We were in Gitmo.
Yeah,
we were in Gitmo waiting for the Haitian invasion. What was that, October of 93?
93,
yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So we did our rehearsals on Cuba, and then went back to the ship. And then after we were getting ready to I guess, execute, and the president's like, nope, I just had 19 service members killed or 18 service members killed in Mogadishu. I don't want any more killed this month, sending people into Haiti. So we ended up doing a show of force. And then after that, it was like, it was kind of writing on the wall, like, we're not going to go in.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, man, I heard that I have orders to Fast Company. And they're like, oh, yep, you do. We need to get you out of here. So I flew off the ship, went back and executed orders to Fast Company.
And where was that located?
That's in Norfolk.
Oh, Norfolk. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So back then, that was the only Fast Company. Now they have 3. During my time, while I was there, they were shutting down the Marine barracks, and they were shutting down the sea. I can't remember what they called it, but the guys on ships. Mm-hmm. And they would take them off there, and if they had time, they took them to Yorktown, and they created 2nd and 3rd Fast Company. And then now all of Fast is up at Yorktown.
Now, what does FAST stand for?
It is the Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team Company.
It's pretty high speed.
Yeah. It was definitely a change from a sniper platoon. Like, hey, here's your box of 20 for the week. And then like the first range I went to, we had 25, 30 or 40,000 9mm rounds. We shot that before noon because we had MP5s and 9mm. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm at the right place.
Is that the picture that you gave me with all the weapons and everything laid out?
That's a Fast platoon armament.
Hold on a second. I gotta pull that up and show the folks that. What I got a chuckle out of it because it has a bunch of riot shields right down there, batons.
Yep, that's a loadout for a Fast platoon.
Oh God, that's funny, man. Because when you look at that, it's just a ton of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, you have everything basically that a rifle company has, but it's and the platoon commander's a captain.
Yeah.
When I was there, it was just the platoon commander, and then you had a platoon sergeant, usually either a staff sergeant or a gunny. I think they've gone to adding an assistant platoon commander and a gunny platoon sergeant and a staff sergeant, like assistant platoon sergeant, with the theory of if you split, you can have the senior officer, so the captain would go with the staff sergeant and the gunny would go with the lieutenant or the assistant platoon commander. So you have the 2 senior guys splitting up, and then you can split the platoon and all that.
So when you went up to Fast Company, you ended up shipping out over to Mogadishu?
We did, yeah. So we got there. We were part of I guess, as the Army guys would call it, like a CRIF or whatever, the crisis response, or not CRIF. What do they call it? The Commanders in Extremis Force, the SIF. Mm-hmm. So that's a special forces team that's trained in CQB to go do in extremist stuff. If like the tier 1 guys, Delta or SEAL Team 6 can't get there, then and you're there, you would execute it or get the stuff rolling until they can get there. So when I first got there, our platoon was called America's Platoon because they didn't deploy because they were part of this Commanders in Extremis force. So our platoon, a Force Recon platoon, made up that force.
And where did you guys go? Where did you live? What were the conditions like?
So when I got there, I was sergeant. I didn't know what that I was authorized to live out in town. So I get there like, hey, I need a room. Like, well, you're a sergeant, you can live out of town. It's like, well, that's all good and great, but guess what? I need a room tonight. So I stayed in the barracks at Marine Barracks. MB-28 is where I stayed, and I think I stayed there for a few months. And then me and another sergeant that were living in the barracks got together, and we got an apartment out in town. But the cool thing about that was at the end of the barracks, kind of looking at the front of the barracks, they had a parade field, and they did parades and stuff at times. At the back side of it was the MAR bar, the Marine bar. So attached to the barracks was a bar.
Right. Yeah. So people don't realize I've got a cabinet full of coins in the back here. And the majority of them, when I traveled around the world, I would walk to the embassies and talk to Post 1, get the young Marine to let the old Marine in. And then I would buy a coin from them. Because when I was stationed in Kabul, the Marines there were awesome. They had that MAR bar, their little barracks, had the bar, and all the hot chicks from all the embassies would come to the Marine bar. And then we were up in Keflavik. They had a MAR bar up there as well. Yeah. But God, good time. So you guys got to stay on the embassy in?
Well, so no, not the embassy. Oh, so yeah, in Mogadishu when we got there, we stayed on the embassy. But this was just the barracks back in Norfolk that I'm talking about.
That
had the bar. Yeah,
had the MAR bar.
So our barracks in Norfolk had a bar attached to it.
Oh yeah, that's probably gone. Yeah. Marine Corps, we can't let you have that kind of fun anymore.
Yeah. So they finally sent us. I think it was in January or February of '94. We started our work up for Somalia. And that was, we had an in-house staff that would train us. So it was like the fast company had the standard. It wasn't like, you go to some place like, oh, we're elite, but our platoon's saying yes or no, whether this guy's good or not. We didn't have that. We had a training section that kept the standard and evaluated everybody and, taught for these evaluations for deployments.
Jeff Scully, do you know him?
That doesn't sound familiar.
It's funny. Marine sniper. It'd be like I think of C-130 units. There's only 3 of us. Yeah. East Coast, West Coast, Okinawa. Very small. You run across and know a lot of the same guys. But I think snipers would be that way as well. But in truth, you guys are all over the place. So unless
that's right, yeah,
somebody went to school with you, you probably wouldn't know him. But he went to Somalia and he was talking about, they came off the ship. They needed some snipers, and he gets in there and the Army colonel comes out and he's like, so where are you boys? Where are your tents? Oh, we got shelter halves, from World War II, and we're going to line them up and we'll put them right here. And he's like, that's bullshit. We'll get you some tents. And so they came out with these really fancy tents. And then they built the tent for him, had air conditioning. And the staff sergeant's like, no, sir, we're not going to have AC. We want to be acclimated. He goes, nah, bullshit. Because if I walk out of my air-conditioned COC out here to talk to you guys, I'm not going to be sweating my balls off in a 120-degree heat. You're getting AC. And the staff sergeant's like, aye, sir. So then they met some hot chicks, or they met some guy. He was a supply guy. And he took him up to the sniper hide. And he just thought that was cool. Big dude. Yeah. He gave him a rifle to hold. And he came back and he was talking to him about, hey, there are these Army girls that would love to come up here and check this out. So they go up there and they check it out. And then somehow, I think that supply guy gave him a sat phone they could call home. So the one guy calls his wife and says, hey, I'm in Somalia. Yeah, I'm up here on this roof. We're doing Overwatch and stuff. And then she got her ass reamed because the battalion commander back home is going, no, we don't have anybody in Somalia. No, my husband says he's on ground. No, nobody's on ground. Nobody. Yeah. Did you guys have a situation like that when you rolled in?
Well, not living situation. We had issues that I can get into with people coming up to the roof, and there's a fight when there was clan fighting or other shooting going on outside the compound. So when we got there, we were Fast Company would rotate platoons through every 4 months. So a platoon would go 4 months later. That was about the extent that they thought we could operate at the level we should without starting to get degrading and losing focus. So the first platoon that went, they flew over with like 16 guys, a total of one compound. Like, okay, one compound, we can do this. We can have, they did the math, like, 16 or 18 dudes or whatever it was is good enough. So they flew over there and they're like, where's the rest of your platoon? You have 4 sites to watch. What? So they got on the net real quick, like, hey, we need the rest of the platoon now. And then those 16 or 20 dudes guarded 4 compounds for like 30 hours without coming off post until the rest of the platoon got there, which goes back to Fast Company. When I was there, we had 2.5 hours to PT, and I don't know, some of the other people didn't use the whole time. My squad was fit, and we used the whole time, and that was an example. Not to mention going back to when we went into Iraq in '91, my squad, we had to do a push up a hill in the mountains of northern Iraq, to take over this Iraqi machine gun position. And out of the squad of 11, I think it was 5 of us made it to the top, and that was only because the others were like, "Oh, I smoke, but if it's real, I'm gonna make it up." And 5 of us of the 11 made it to the top because they were all out of breath, and it was like, note to self: fitness is important, and it could be life and death.
Right.
Luckily, when we got to the top, the machine gun bunker was abandoned, so we just took it over, and start setting up our positions. That one picture of me, I think I was pointing, and then I don't know if I sent you the landmine. I was pointing at a landmine. It's up. Yeah, that one. You can see me pointing down at the. You can see the knife pointing down at the landmine. So that was landmines that we found close to our position.
God, you're in jungle fatigues, man.
Yeah, that was the.
No chocolate chips?
Oh no, because we're in the mountains of northern Iraq. It was all green.
I was like, holy crap, man! Look at it. You got the 1980s flak jacket on.
Yep.
Yeah, you got your green jungle.
That was 91.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, it's funny. That's what I got out in 95, off active duty in 95. And then when I got back in on to go to Iraq, they're like, oh, I pull out my uniforms, and they're like, oh no, we don't even use those anymore. We use we got these new digicams.
Yeah.
Oh wow, high speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looked pretty cool. So what did you guys do? Blow that in place?
No, we just left it. There was a hole because they were all daisy chained together. And it was like the mine, and then there was like a pile of rocks within like 1 meter of it. So you could sit there and see the pile of rocks, and then the landmine. Full disclosure, I got dysentery from drinking water that had a goat in it. So I'd run out in the middle of the minefield, to go to the bathroom, because it was either that or go like 600 meters one way to where the slit trench was dug. And I was like, nope, not going to make it. Just run a couple strands into the minefield, go do my business, pull up, and then come back.
Holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
Holy crap. No kidding.
But so going back to Somalia, when we got there, it was already pretty established, but we stayed in the embassy. Not the embassy, but the ambassador's house is where we stayed. And then further away, they had built revetments. So it's like 7 foot tall, I don't know, pieces of metal that held dirt in it, kind of like the HESCO barriers of the global war on terror, kind of deal. And then they had trailers behind that, and that's where the embassy, the ambassador, and the embassy staff stayed. So, and then they're further away from the walls. So we had I had a room to myself that was, I don't know, maybe 8 to 12 feet square. Had a cot in there, had an air conditioner, and it was nice.
And what was the embassy folks were still there?
They were, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, so they didn't call it an embassy; they called it a U.S. liaison office. So I think it's the amount of stuff that they had, they couldn't call it a full embassy; they called it a liaison or whatever. So we still had an ambassador, DCM, had all that stuff, but I don't know where the technical line lays that he can't call it an embassy and you got to call it that or whatever. But we still had the ambassador. We still took the ambassador out in town whenever he went out in town. We would be his armed convoy escort. So that was part of our mission. So our mission was twofold. One was to guard the embassy compound kind of proper, as well as our compound where all the embassy personnel stayed. And then that was part one. And part two was whenever the ambassador went out in town, we would do his armed convoy escort. So we would be in armed gun trucks, and the ambassador would be in a fully up armored Suburban.
Yep. So when you were up on top on your perch up there, how long would a shift? I mean, would you have you an assistant gunner or what?
No, so I was a sergeant. So I was the sergeant of the guard. So I had my section. We broke our platoon up. When I first got there, it was like first squad, second squad, and third squad. First squad initially was, hey, you're the best CQB shooters. Second squad was the next best CQB shooters. Third squad was either the weapons guys or new guys like me just coming to the company. And that was geared around doing room clearing or isolating the objective.
And did you guys go out in town and do that?
Well, so we did a few times, but when we started our workup for Somalia, we broke up into two sections. I was the sergeant for first squad, and then Sergeant Tracy was another sergeant from the fleet, was the squad leader from the second squad, and then we broke up the weapons guys to have an even mix of those complements in our squads. We'd have an even amount of machine gunners. We asked initially to bring one or like at least one mortar, only to fire illumination. And the ambassador's like, oh, that's an offensive weapon. No, you're not bringing those. Like, all right, so 0341 mortarman, Dominus, you're a machine gunner now. So we train all those guys to be machine gunners. Everybody was trained on the machine gun, but other platoons would like rotate through, like, oh, Taco, you fucked up yesterday. You're not going to be on the gun. You're going to be in the left rear, which would never, generally somehow wouldn't be the guy that ever shot. So they'd punish you, and not like, okay, whatever. But we were like, for my squad, it was the same guys, same position. So you got used to that position, and how to react. It wasn't rotating through like, oh, you're a driver today. No, you're a driver tomorrow.
So you do all the training and the workups. What was it like the very first time the bullets came over your head?
Oh, so when myself, my platoon commander, and the other sergeant flew Advon over. So it's just the three of us, So we flew commercial all the way to Nairobi, Kenya. Kind of funny story, ties into because there's no commercial aircraft flying into Mogadishu after Black Hawk Down and all that.
Right.
So we get there, and I get up in the morning at the embassy or at the hotel. I turn on the TV, and I'm like, they're all speaking in whatever language they speak in Kenya, and they're watching this high-speed chase of this white Bronco down a highway. I'm like, I was like,
Jay Simpson.
Yeah. Well, so I didn't know what the hell it was. I just like, oh, this is okay, whatever. I just changed the channel and went about my way. But we had to wait a couple of days to go there, so we got to go on a half-day safari in the Nairobi National Forest.
Oh wow!
And then we end up. Well, I seem to fall into some lucky stuff along my way. So fast forward, we fly in with a handful of other people going into Mogadishu, like a CIA, whatever bird. We fly in with, I think it was like 6 or 8 of us. We get there. So we're the Advon, if you will. We're going around. And at this point, I'm up on the roof of the embassy, or not the embassy, the White House is what we called it, because it was a white building. And that's what we just fall in on the terms that they were using. So we're up on the roof, and I'm looking at the range card from the sniper from the platoon that we were leaving, and we're sitting there talking. He's pointing out like, this is this. So I see visually what he has on his graph, and we're looking, and I'm like, then and there's 2 clans fighting outside our wall, back and forth. Then I hear, I'm like,
that's a round just came overhead.
Well, it was, and that's what it was. And then I'm like, we keep on talking. It was like, crack. I was like, we looked at each other. And we're like, that's getting close. She's like, oh, yes. We stopped. We put the range card down. We start looking. And another one came closer. So now I'm like, helmet, binos, leaning on a sandbag. He's got his M40 up looking. We're trying to see who this shooter is because they're definitely getting closer and getting more of a beat on us. And then we're shoulder to shoulder. And then the last one's like, crack. I dove right and he dove left, and that round passed right between us. Now we're hunkered down behind like, oh shit, that dude's got a beat on us. So I got on the TA-312, I think it is, the little hand cranked, connected to a wire down to the COC. It's like, hey, just so you know, they're shooting at us. Oh, no, you're new. That's just spillover fire.
No.
Some few choice words, hung up with him, and he's like, what'd they say? I was like, you said that was spillover fire. He's like, yeah, nope, that wasn't spillover fire. That was somebody, literally engaging, trying to hit us. So that was really the first time that I ever had, a rounds that close. When
and
I was
were you able to get the guy back?
No, we never saw, because it was just so much clan fighting back and forth. It was like pow, 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 and the guy would just turn back around before we even could get an idea. There's just, like I said, so much shooting going back and forth.
And what's it called the first time you actually hog?
You're talking about the hog's tooth?
Yeah.
So I got mine. You get those when you graduated sniper school. So you went from what they called a professionally instructed gunman, a pig, to a hog, a hunter of gunmen, and that's when they give you the hog's tooth.
Gotcha. Okay. And they give you an actual hog's tooth.
No, they give you. They pull one of the projectiles out of one of the rounds we shoot. They drill a hole in it, so it's just.
It's a round. Oh, that's cool as hell, man.
Yeah. So I would show you. I have mine hanging from my mirror in my car.
Yeah, I remember Chris talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Chris March talking about that hog's tooth thing, but I couldn't remember if it was if you got your first kill. No,
I've known some that have taken their hog's tooth and then they'll put something on that chain for every kill they've gotten. I was definitely never like that. And to be clear, all my sniper time was pre 9/11. I was, like I said, I was a gunny in zone for master sergeant when like 9/11 and stuff happened.
Right.
So I was at SOTG as a staff sergeant, got picked up for gunny while I was there, did a year there. Then I went to 2-6. But so my point is all my sniper time was pre 9/11, not post 9/11.
So when you go over, let's talk about sniper post 9/11. Your first time was in 05?
Going over to Iraq, yes, post 9/11. Well, yeah. So I got to 2-6 in the summer of 03. I became the company gunny for Fox Company 2-6. And at that point, they were signing us to go to Okinawa for 3 months to get the Okinawa cycle back on track. Mm-hmm. So I flew over, did the company gunny thing, signing for $2 million worth of all the guns and everything that was assigned that the company commander was going to eventually sign for. I had to go through inventory and sign, and then he would go through an inventory behind me and sign for it. And then our 3 months turned into like, well, if they're already over there, instead of having to rotate another unit through in 3 months, we'll just keep them there for, it was like 7.5 or 8 months. And then we'll have the next one come in for 7.5 or 8 months. And then a year from now, we'll be back on schedule. We'll only have to deploy 2 units instead of 3. And so that went to there. We get back from that deployment. That's summer, late spring of 04. And then we get assigned to the, the 4th MEB anti-terrorism. So they made the 4th MEB, and then in that all those battalions were going. There was one battalion that was assigned to it, and they would send dets across the globe doing different security stuff. So for us, we got assigned and my company specifically got assigned to go to the embassy in Kabul to guard that. Another company got sent to Iraq to guard the embassy there. That was Gulf Company, and then Echo Company with Sergeant Majors, First Sergeant Zigafus. That was the guy I was talking to when we were on the phone. His company did the personal security for the ambassador during the election time. So that's what we all got assigned to. So we ended up going to my platoon, or my company specifically ended up going to Kabul before we went to Iraq in 05, so that was 04.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So the first sergeant, smart on his part, and somewhat selfish on his part. It was him, the XO, and the CO was the command staff, and then he had we could only bring 90 guys over out of the company, so 89 of those were single. The only one that was married was the company commander. So he's like, I didn't have to worry about my wife this, my wife that, while they're over there.
Right.
So as a company gunny, I flew over with them, got them settled in, took them out to the range, got the snipers, the snipers and the DMs, their rifles zeroed, and all that. And
where were you guys in? Because I was in the embassy in 08 and they built this big monstrosity. But back when you were there, it was a smaller place. Did you guys live on the embassy grounds?
They did live on the embassy grounds, and I was like, this is weird. Why do we have? And in my mind, we're like, we have aiming stakes on the compounds. You have the city like this, and then there's like one huge tower of scaffolding, sticking up. And it was like, oh, you can be anywhere in the mountains around there, and just like, oh, that's where the embassy is. Let me fire rockets towards the embassy.
Yeah.
So one of the things that happened there, we're sitting there, and the guys on the roof were like, hey, we see a guy with a radio. And they're like, where's he at? And they're trying to talk on where this guy was outside of the compound with the radio and like binos or whatever it was. And it was like, it was in a big open area. And I was sitting there, I was like, I'm a dumbass. And I thought back to my time at SOTG when I was teaching the reconnaissance and surveillance course. We would do it like a GRG, a grid over a satellite image. So I was like, hey, went to the intel guys, like, hey, give me a satellite image of the compound and our surrounding area. Then I just did inch-long tick marks and made a grid over that, photocopied that, took it upstairs, took it down to the intel guys that were going outside the wire. And I was like, hey, we're gonna use this. I'll get something more professional, but use this for now. And by the time I got out to those guys, the people that were looking had already left. So I came back and I was like, hey, do a more professional one of these. And I asked my CO, and he's like, hey, I'm doing this. Is that good to go? And he's like, whatever, Gunny, whatever. I don't care. Okay. So I went and did it, and then so I flew back a few days later with the company that was from the other battalion leaving. So I was going back to be the senior enlisted. I was a gunny, but I was the first sergeant doing all the first sergeant details or, stuff with the group. The rest of the company was back in the rear. And then apparently a few days later, the ambassador saw what I had done with that and was like, this is genius. Can we do this for the whole city? And the RSO and them like, yeah, sure. Well, we can do that. And then my CO's like, yep, me and my gunny came up with that. And the first sergeant's like, bullshit. That was all Gunny Carr. No. And then he sent me an email telling me about that a few days later. I was like, it is what it is,
Yeah, but that's funny, man.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going into the RSO's office, and they had the map of Kabul, and they had all the sections. Yeah, that's funny as hell. Good job, man. Mm-hmm. So did you get any action over there?
No, I was only there for like a week or it might have been less than a week. I said I flew over, got them settled in. We did one convoy, which was compared to I go back to like, my previous experiences. I think of when we're getting ready to go out in town to Mogadishu, we had a huge convoy brief. We did rehearsals. Our platoon commander had like little cars and he drive them around doing graphics of what we're going to do and all that. So I'm going to go back to this, but when we were in Mogadishu, our platoon commander as a captain was a recon guy during the initial Gulf War. And he's like, why am I bringing guys over? Why am I going to have Sergeant Carr who can work on cars in his off time work on cars? Why don't I just bring a motor T guy to work on vehicles? So we brought a motor T guy over. We brought a comm guy over, and so we brought a couple other guys. Fast forward 2 years later, he got augmented as a logistics guy, and he was a colonel at MARSOC, and that's partly he was the one that pushed to have MARSOC have all these other enablers go. He's like, why do I want to have a shooter work on the cars? Why don't I have a guy go over there specifically to work on the cars or to work on the comms and all that? And that genesis was all the way back to our platoon in Somalia.
No kidding. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's funny how like little things we do, we were looked at like, why are you doing that? Nobody else has done that. And then years later, it morphs into, like other forces. Yeah, other forces are jealous. Like, man, when the Marines come, they come with everything. They have we actually even brought an intel guy as well when we were with the Mogadishu.
Yeah, man, do more with less most of the time, but
Yeah, like I said, we were able to bring them, so why not? Why sit there and do that?
Well, what was your deployment to Iraq like?
Oh, well, do you want me to finish the thing with Kabul, or do you want me to?
Oh, yeah.
So I was saying that to say that's in my mindset. That's what I think of a convoy brief's going to be. We would do this, 30 or 40-minute thing. So we get to Kabul, and the XO of the company that we're relieving is like, hey man, you need to take them out to show them where the range is at the ANA compound. Show them who to link up with. And He's like, I don't want to do this. I'm over this. So our brief was literally Carr, Taco, Smith, Jakubowski. You're in that car over there. And then you go, and it was like, all right, we're gonna go. That's it. That's the brief. I was like, what the hell? It was like, we're not going to do any, react to whatever, or if a car breaks down, that shit never happens. Like, all right, here we go.
And you're in your little Land Cruisers.
Yeah.
Drive up armored side skinny, Land Cruisers.
We're driving. I mean, we were all in soft skin vehicles. We put the snipers and the DN guys was the main reason why we're going, was to show the leadership where the range was, but also to have the snipers and the DMs zero their guns over there because they were falling in on guns. So we're going over there. We're on the road and we're driving, and I'm like, wait, we're going to stop. One of the vehicles in between us was a cut V, and it hit a big bump. And the engine died. So it just like pulled over to the side. I was like, are we going to stop for the what? And he just kept on going like, they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. What the hell? And then in the end, the last vehicle stopped to hold security for him. And at this point, we were so close to the ANA compound, we got out, and I'm walking back because I'm going to go check on my police sergeant who was in the vehicle with their company's police sergeant. And I'm going by. And I stopped at the end of the area, and I'm looking. I'm like, all right, that last vehicle's there. I'm going to go out and see, get some guys out to hold security. And I go back, and I knock on the window of the van with all my guys in there, all the snipers and the DMs. I'm like, hey guys, what are you guys doing? And they're all like, join the AC. I'm like, get the fuck out of the vehicles. I about lost my mind. Get some security. I'm like, oh shit, yeah, that's right. We're in. We're in a war zone. Yeah, we're in a hostile environment. What the hell? So I lose my mind on them. Come back, and because nobody else, just in my mind, they're all just sitting back like, all right, they'll figure it out. I'm gonna stay here because I'm in my vehicle and whatever. And by the time I get back to the back, they've already hooked up the vehicle and they're pulling it up. So I'm like, what? I'm just like losing my mind. I'm like, I was like, okay, part of that failure is on me for not, beating it into my guy's head before we come over there, convoy ops.
Right.
But then, some of it was, we were just passengers, if you will, and most of their guys were the ones that were driving.
Were these Marines that were taking?
They were, yeah. It was from another infantry battalion.
Wow.
And it might just be they were just tired and just done with being in Kabul and ready to go home and not want to go outside the wire another time or whatever.
Yeah, that's when you get hit.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm like. It's like, all right, that's note to self. I got to train these guys better for the next round.
Yeah.
And then there was some craziness on the range. We were shooting, and we were zeroing. And so let me back up. We first get there, and we're at the range control or whatever. And I had one of the Marines come up, Gunny, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're going to be mad. I was like, what?
Left the ammo?
No, they left their DM and sniper rifles at the compound. I'm like, what the? And it didn't dawn on me because I kept on seeing Pelican cases going back and forth. What that was the snipers walking back and forth with their guns. So the snipers had theirs, but the DMs didn't have theirs. I was like, how do you not bring your guns to the range? you expected somebody else to bring you your guns. So we ended up having to send a convoy back with them to get their guns to come back.
Oh, that's painful.
I was on fire. So that begins me being pissed off, for the rest of that. So now,
did you have to go to stress management training after that? Did
no,
they have to send you away, find your calm place, find your happy place? Come on, Gunny, come over here. Let's find your happy place. Here's some Red Man.
Yeah.
Just calm down. It's okay. Look at the beautiful mountains here. This is really nice, Gunny. Come on.
You know what I'm saying? So this is adding on. This is on that same convoy with those guys, leaving the guy behind. I'm like, what is going on? So we send those guys back, and I take the snipers, and there's no like target trees set up. I'm like, all right, see this rock? That's about 100 meters. I kind of paced it off. That's just confirm that you can hit that. So they're firing their 40s. They dial in their 40s. They're like, hey, by then now the DMs come back with their rifles. They're like, hey, can we shoot the Sasser to 0R stuff? I'm like, okay, cool. Go to the other end of the firing line, so you're not right next to everybody, killing everybody with concussion of that thing, and the backblast comes off out of the muzzle.
That's the
Barrett. Yeah, the Barrett 50 cal.
And what do you call it? A Sasser?
Yeah, it's stands for Special Application Scoped Rifle. So it doesn't have the precision of a sniper rifle to call it a sniper rifle. So the ones in the fleet, like when I went through advanced sniper school, they got dialed in after we go shoot them. We take them back to the match armors, and they're like, oh, we're going to train the new guys, and they'll double check all the tolerances and all that stuff. The ones in the fleet, if you aim at a door and you hit somewhere on the door, you're pretty close and you're pretty on as compared to the ones at advanced sniper school. I mean,
right.
The ones at advanced sniper school, I shot my longest, coolest shot in my mind was a 1,500 yard shot on a range down the barrel of the tank. So I shot one, it hit the lip of the tank or the barrel, and then I just adjusted it just slightly, and the next one went down the center of the barrel, and you can see the sparkle inside the barrel of the tank at 1,500 yards.
Wow!
So that compared to get back to my unit, and if I aim at the door and it hits somewhere on the door of a car, that's close enough to being on.
Damn.
So that's the point of that is it's not as precision as a sniper rifle that has the tolerances of 1 minute of angle, meaning 1 inch at 100 is what it's guaranteed to do.
Yeah.
So they're over there doing that, and then the DMs come back, and then one guy's shooting, and he's like, "But Gunny, this is not how we did it at DM school." And again, my level here is now up to here. I'm like, and at one point I blew up, and the guy's like, "Dude, if I hear you mention DM school again, I'm gonna take that fucking rifle away from you. You're never gonna see it again."
What is DM? What is DM?
Designated marksman. So that's guys that like a security force. They go through and they have a more precision rifle, and they learn the shooting portion of it, but not necessarily of like sniper stuff. And they would shoot out to, I'm going to say 600 yards. So we had those guys. It was all off of the security force template. When I was at Fast Company, we had me and another guy, Renz, were the two school-trained snipers. And then in our platoon, we had, I think it was like 4 or 5 other designated marksman-trained guys. That, again, security forces had its own school to get guys designated marksman qualified. And again, they'd shoot out to 600. And there we had an M14, an accurized M14 with a scope. And that's what they shot. So again, the snipers qualify out to 1,000. The DMs qualified out to 600. But it was all geared towards supporting a CQB recapture kind of mission is what that was initially geared towards. So you didn't necessarily have to stalk in because you have the crisis site being like, say, my neighborhood, the crisis point being my house. The crisis site, everything in there is secured, so you only have to focus on the crisis point, which is the house or whatever. Gotcha. So they didn't have to necessarily stalk in. You could get into the house across the street, build a hide in there, but you're not worried about people coming in to take the house down. You're just worried about the crisis point, and that's the point of the DMs to get in there. Just think of like SWAT snipers, kind of a deal. So they went through a DM course, and this guy's like, "But Gunny, at DM school," I was like, "Dude, if you mention that school again, I'm going to take that rifle," because he was shooting and he wasn't able to hit, and he's like, "Oh, this is not how we did at school." Man, this is the fleet, and this is how you got to adapt. You take that base knowledge and you have to apply it to the situation you're in. So now we're shooting, and one of the guys was sleeping. Now the Sasser goes off, boom, and that thing's loud, and and puts off a big concussion, and it sparkles out in the impact area. When the guys was sleeping, he's like, shoots again. I was like, "Hey, Gunny!" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Incoming!" I'm like looking around, like, where's this incoming he's talking about? Yeah. Boom! And you hear the Sasser go, like, there it is again. It's the Sasser, you Sorry for the language, but those are the words I was like.
Oh, this is rated R, man. Don't worry about it.
So I was up to here from all the other stuff, and then I'm like, calm down, And then he's like, oh shit, okay, So that was the excitement of Kabul.
And did those guys engage when they were over there? Do you know?
I don't think they did. I don't remember that they did. Yeah.
Right.
Again, it was more supporting covering the embassy. Again, a lot of stuff that in my mind snipers do is not shooting; it's reporting and and directing, if you will. And that's kind of the same thing they did there.
Well, how about now take us back to Iraq?
So
because that was a shooting, and you were there at the time. Chris Kyle was there, right?
Well,
he was running around. Yeah, he was running around Fallujah too.
Well, yeah. So I don't know if he was before me or after me. On my last deployment, his SEAL platoon was with us in Western Iraq. Because I remember I was the battalion gunner at 2-2, and we got a brief when we first got there. It was an ODA, a Special Forces ODA. That was the Special Forces element that was out in our area. And I think like a week into our time there, they switched out with a SEAL Team 3. I want to say SEAL Team 3 platoon. And we got an in brief from them. It was the colonel, I think the OPSO, the XO, me, and there was a couple others. I remember coming into their compound and we're sitting down like, oh, this is the chief. This is so-and-so. And back up in the back, that's the legend, and like, oh, yeah, we just call him the legend. Like, okay, whatever. And it never clicked on me till years later when the movie and all that. I was like, oh, that's because, him, and he ended up getting pulled from that platoon to go work, elsewhere in our area. But my first time, I don't know when or where he was at or whatever. But like I talked about on that phone call, I'd already put my gunner package in. I'm pretty sure that I was selected because of what, like we said, my battalion gunner was like, sir, what are we going to do when Gunny Carr? I mean, if Gunny Carr gets selected for gunner, and he's the company gunny, we don't want to necessarily change out in the middle of fighting in Fallujah or in the middle of the deployment to send him back to go to school. So they made me the log chief, the logistics chief. And like, all right, what better? Because on previous deployments, we had issues with the 04 embark guy being the log chief. He was good at his thing, but he couldn't do other stuff. So on the Oki deployment, we had he was the food service specialist, like the food service chief become the log chief. And then on the next deployment, that's when they're like, hey, we're going to have Gunny Carr be the log chief. What better guy to have as the log chief to anticipate what the rifle companies need than a guy that did rifle company gunny for 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And then if he gets selected and he gets pulled out, that's less of an impact, if you will, on the battalion. We're not affecting a fighting force by pulling out one of their leadership guys.
Right.
So go to 29 Palms as the log chief, and then we go to Fallujah as the log chief. When we get there, I want to say it was 1-6 is who we were turning over with, and they did what was called the XO's Roadshow. So every week, the XO and the log chief and all the commodities, comm, motor T, armors, medical, would go out to all the different fobs that we had. So if, like, say the armor had to put something on all the saws, instead of having all the saws leave their base, come in, get worked on, and get taken out, we would drive. I would do a meeting on Tuesday, and either Wednesday or Thursday we would go out to all the bases. But so it was like a pre-set up thing.
Yeah.
And then we would go out to the different bases. One convoy going out to them instead of having 7 different convoys coming back. And
sure.
if something gets, if somebody gets hit, oh, the guns are still here. We're not waiting. They're not. Oh shit, we can't engage with this weapon system or whatever because it's back in the rear. So we started doing that. The first convoy out was we had a guy from my old company get hit, and he ended up losing a leg. And this was, man, I felt like that tall. You know, we get out, we do our thing. We get out to their base, which was on the north side of the city. And one of the sergeant, or a couple of the sergeant that was the squad leader, and a couple others came over, and they're venting to me, and I'm like sitting in my mind like, this is what your staff's for, you know, going to the company gunny and all that. But they didn't feel comfortable with them because I'd been their company gunny for the past 2.5 years. They came to me and they're like, you know, like, Gunny, yo, it's all. The guy lost his leg from the knee down because he was in a soft skin Humvee that they put up armored stuff on it, but there was a gap of like this in the wheel well, and his leg was right there. When the explosion went off, it took just about, you know, all of it from his knee down. The only thing that was kind of holding it on was some skin. So he lost his leg from there. But as they were leaving the compound, we had, I want to say it was Warlock. Was the name of the system? Was a electronic countermeasures.
Like the big pole on the back of
on all the vehicles, yeah. So it was on. You know, they went out there like, hey, our Warlock's not working. And the platoon commander's like, hey, we're still pushing. We got to go on this mission. Just tuck in close to somebody else, so you fall into their Warlock bubble. And obviously, at some point, they came out of that bubble, or it was I'm using my TBI's kicking in. It's a pressure plate kind of deal that set it off. And I don't know, but in that, he's like, they got hit. He was telling them, he's like, Donald, he's like, hey, do this, you do that, da-da-da-da. And you might want to get an LZ because I think I just lost my fucking leg. You know, so he was, as he was doing that, he was, you know, the squad leader, he was directing his guys and, you know, trying to save his leg and prepare for that. So they're pissed off about that. And they're coming to me and they're like, hey, this is bullshit, Lieutenant. We need to go back out there and, you know, and get vengeance, you know? And I was like, wait, stop. You know, I was like, first off, you know, he made that call. You can't, you know, don't be pissed off. That's him. He has to live with that the rest of his life, whether he should have done that or not. That's a weight enough. You don't need to be pissed off at him. Two is like, if you're going out being mad about what just happened, you're not focusing on what's going on right now, and you can miss something, and then somebody else that's here is going to get hurt. So I was like, you need to, you know, reshift, refocus, and you know, you can be mad, but guess what? You need to put that down, and you need to go and focus for the guys that are still here, you know. And but I also felt like crap. I was like, this is the company, you know, this is the company gunny stuff that I should be doing, not sitting back at the at the COC and the S4 shop, you know. Mm-hmm. So I was a little guilty that. But I was also happy that I was there that day to allow them to vent and me to try to, you know, kind of refocus them on what they need to do and be prepared to do.
Yeah. Well, we got there August of 2005. We took rockets from Fallujah all the time.
Oh, so we got there in September of 2005.
Yeah. So hurricane had already hit New Orleans. We got in there like August 5th. I can't remember, but landed Al Assad and then down to TQ. Mm-hmm. And the rockets would be pre-staged next to somebody's house, and they'd hook them up to a battery and launch these 122s over to the base because they knew the base was over in that direction.
Yeah.
And they would just constantly IDF. But I got to take a helicopter over to Fallujah. A good buddy of mine from Okinawa was a commo, and he was stationed over there, so I got to go hook up with him.
Oh, nice.
And and he took me to where he had to go do a meeting or whatever. And he said, just go walk around. I'm like, oh, cool. So I'm like the dumbass guy just walking around Fallujah, you know, okay, here's a chow hall. And and then I go up and there was a guard shack, elevated guard shack. Yeah. And they had silhouettes of people up in these things. And I remember looking, thinking, I don't see anybody up there. It's a silhouette of a guy.
Yeah.
And then there was this big field next to the chow hall, so I kind of meandered over there. And it was piles of ammunition, like shells.
Yeah.
and I'm, into photography, and I thought, well, that kind of looks cool. So I'm snapping pictures. I walk around. It's an old training place. There was some Iraqi soldiers in this area. So I kind of avoided them, walked over, and then I just started walking through these fields, and there was a place where they were making bricks. They had the big little squares, and they were making bricks. I found an AK-47 in a building. I brought that back and bring it back, but I brought it back and gave it to Tom because I already had an RPK in my room. That was funny. I'm cleaning out this room. I lived in the old bathroom in the tower at TQ.
Oh shit!
And I'm cleaning out the room because it needed to be field day. And the last guy, he didn't field day at all. And I'm pulling stuff out, and I'm like, what is all this shit under I had an extra bunk. I'm like, what is all this shit under here? And I'm pulling out, and there's a friggin' big RPK with the bipod and ammo and stuff. And so everybody that came up to we turned it into a cigar bar at the top of the building at TQ called the Bada Bing. They would have this cross ammo holding this big friggin' giant machine gun, and get a picture in front of, we had the Bada Bing mud flap girl. But I mean, I got to go over there, and then I remember talking to a guy. He said, yeah, we've got a sniper. So this was 05. We have a sniper running around, and they thought he was a Chechen.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear about that guy?
We did. So he was bouncing back between our AO and I want to say Ramadi. So he would like shoot one or two people in Fallujah and then head to Ramadi to allow things in Fallujah to cool down. Then he'd hit a couple people there and then kind of bounce back and forth. And so we had a couple of our guys hit by that guy. And like I said, at this point I was a senior guy, but so the battalion commander knew I was a sniper. The ops chief for the battalion was a sniper, and there was a couple. Sergeant Major, now retired Sergeant Major now, Zigafus was a sniper. So there was a handful of us, and I'm probably forgetting one or two others that were back in the COC that were all trained, advanced school guys and everything. So they kind of created a working group to try to figure this out.
And what did you guys come up with? This is interesting.
It's kind of hard to, and I haven't thought about this in 18 years.
Yeah, 18 years.
Yeah. I guess it is that 50, whatever. In a long time. So I don't remember the details. I just remember us forming a working group and talking about like, hey, we'd have to set up counter sniper and how to do that. And it's going to be just a waiting game. This is where they're shooting out of, and so they brought in our snipers. I think they brought in recon snipers. I think they had SEAL snipers. And I can't remember if they had Army snipers or not, but they brought in a large, soft, as well as our sniper contingent to do counter sniper operations. And it was just like a waiting game kind of deal.
Did you guys get him? I can't remember.
I don't remember, to be honest, because
it was 18 years ago. That is a long time ago.
Well, not to mention, I got selected in end of November for the gunner program, and middle of December is when I flew back to have some downtime and then get ready to go to Warrant Officer Basic Course up at Quantico. So, like you said, a lot of that is fuzzy of the details of that.
Well, what's your favorite story? What is your favorite story from fucking with somebody in combat, practical joke, or having fun with somebody? While you're bored sitting in the rear. Do you ever have any stories?
A lot of stuff that I remember is either I did or shit happened to me. So I got selected for gunner, and the regimental gunner was a platoon sergeant when I was up at FAST. And he's like, hey, my gunner was Tommy Beach. He's like, hey, Tommy, bring Carr along every week they do a gunner meeting at the regiment. So, they might be coming through our AO. We figure out how to defeat whatever they're using, and then they go to 27's AO. Well, hey, this works. Don't do this. Try this first because we did these other things. So that was kind of the coordination meeting. That was like every Friday at like 11 or 10:30. So we'd be there at 10:30. We do the meeting, and then we go to Camp Fallujah Chow Hall to eat. So my whole time previous to this was a vat chow, meaning somebody else at Camp Fallujah cooked it, threw it in a can, and they bring it over to us for breakfast and dinner, and then we had an MRE for lunch. My first time in Iraq in 91, I lived in a hole for most of my time. So I had a room, I had air conditioning, I had hot chow 2 days a week, or two meals a day. I was living high on the hog. And then he's like, hey, I go to the first meeting. We get there, we do our stuff, and then he's like, all right, we're going to the chow hall. We go to Camp Fallujah Chow Hall. They got a couple different big ones. I walk in there, and I'm like, there was a pasta bar, there was a salad bar, there was a main line, there was a fast food line, there was ice cream, and I was like, I loaded my plate up with a little bit of everything. I was like, I'm sitting there, and I'm like chowing down, and my gunner comes and sits next to me, and he's got like this one little small thing. He looks over at me, he's like, fucking amateur. And I was like, I'm looking at my plate with all kinds of food, and he's got just a little pile. I'm like, thinking like, whatever, who's the amateur? Then he eats his stuff and walks off. Then he comes back like 5 minutes later with like a Baskin Robbins fucking thing with like 4 scoops of ice cream. And I was like, yep, I'm the fucking amateur. I took the rest of my food, threw that away. I come back with some ice cream. I eat the ice cream. And then we're sitting there, now we're outside by the vehicles. And I was like, oh shit. I hadn't had dairy in fucking, months. Hey, Gunner, we need to go. Because we didn't live on Camp Fallujah. We lived on Camp Bahariya, which was like catty corner to them. It was Saddam's like summer resort where there was like a lake in there and other stuff. Yeah. So that's where our battalion was. We had to go outside Camp Fallujah, drive over, and then come into our compound. So I'm sitting there sweating like, oh God, please, let me make it. So we get there. I run into I get out of the vehicle. I run over to the to my shop to throw my gear. Then I run to the porta potty. And I was like, I made it. Oh my God.
And no toilet paper.
Well, no, I made sure that was why I went back because you never know if it was going to be in there or not. And I was like, I didn't want to be in there or not.
You know what I wanted. If they had invented that assault gun, the fly killer, that I would have had one of those over in Iraq, sitting in the shitter. It's 140 degrees, and all the flies. I would have just been having fun while I was taking a dump, shooting the flies with assault, killing those little bastards. I was talking to Chuck Ziegenfuss. He's lives up north from me. He's a retired major tanker, and he likes to play practical jokes. And what Chuck would do is he'd go out there, and the Iraqis would leave bottles of water in the shitter. And so he would take Tabasco sauce and put enough in there that it wouldn't discolor it. And so when they were washing their ass, or he would take in Afghanistan, you had the porcelain shitters with the 2 footprints. He would take Pam from the chow hall and he would spray it on the and the guy just, I listened to his stories. That guy just cracked me up with all the stuff he would do to, have fun.
When we were in Mogadishu, we had issues with kids throwing stones at us on post. We had to put chicken wire around the front. So I ordered a freaking slingshot wrist rocket thing. We'd sit there. We'd sit there behind the wall. And they throw shit like, he said, where are you at? Pull back. Like, no, a little bit over here. Right there. And just pop up and launch it. Try to hit, because you couldn't shoot at them. We're like, but they started to realize, like, oh, we got to get this far back, which was further back than they were at, at that point, to not hit us with the rocks. So their accuracy went away, that was some of the craziness.
I was going to say, standoff with a wrist rocket, those wrist rockets, you got a couple ball bearings or something. When we were down in Gitmo for the Haitian deal, we stopped in Homestead. And we'd flown all the helicopters. We'd refueled. We had 2 sections. They refueled the Echoes. And then the Deltas, we'd have to stop and island hop. And they would have FARPs set up for the guys to refuel. And then we drug all the helicopters down there. We stayed in Homestead and we drove to a Walmart and we all bought wrist rockets. Somebody said, buy wrist rockets and buy bags of marbles and bring them down for us. So we were down there shooting those banana rats down there in Gitmo, those big ass rats.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. So much serious, but also funny at the same time. We were doing our workup to go to Somalia, and like I said, we had the comm guy, the motor T guy, the intel guy, all assigned. So we were at the tire house at Chesapeake practicing, squad room clearing live fire. It's like, all right, we're going to have the doc and the comm guy go make entry. The doc had been in, I can't remember if it was 4th platoon or 5th platoon, but he was in one of the first 2 platoons in Somalia. So he'd already been over there. So we're like, okay, he's good to go. And then the only questionable one would be the comm guy. Not paying attention. He loads his pistol, puts a magazine in his rifle, gives him the bump. The doc goes in and clears. Bang, bang. He engages his target. This guy comes around, hits his corner. Click. I'm down, yo. I'm going to my 9. Slings his rifle, comes out with his pistol, and starts working his way to the center of the room, not his dominant position. He's like, bang, bang. Then spins around, sees the other guy. He's like, bang, bang. And at this time, I'm on the top of the tires. I'm like, oh, shit. So he's going crazy. So I roll up. I don't want to get shot. They're like, oh, he's lost his mind. The CQB instructors were like drawing out on him. Then he's like, clear. We're like, oh, no, you are not going to fucking ever leave the wire with us when we get over there.
What was he shooting at?
He was shooting at targets, but he was literally, instead of engaging, he was like,
is he going 7-Eleven style?
He was throwing them. He's like, bang, 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 bang. We're like, what the? So we fast forward to we're in Mogadishu. Again, he never left the wire once. And then every time we had all our posts on what they called it, what I guess artillery guys called a gun loop. So what all that means is it's all the field phones are connected. So I could be calling you in the COC, but a guy at another post can pick up and hear what I'm reporting.
Right.
And we
party line.
Yeah. So every time we adjusted some of the stuff that other platoons had and did to include, we redid the whole roof. Which I was going to mention looky-loos. We're talking about people coming up to the roof. And I'm hearing whatever. There's a gunfire. Let me see. And then they're crowding our post where the snipers or the roof post guys were at. But so we changed that. We changed stuff at the wall. But as we're going through with the heavy equipment, we're like, hey, gunny. Our platoon sergeant, stop. The comm guys. I'm gonna leave his name out. So I don't. Like, Sergeant so-and-so's his comm wire. He's like, fuck him, he needs something to do. And he tear up the gun loop. And then we get him like, hey, your wire's fucked up. You got to come out here and fix it. So we initially started talking about how we were set up in our platoon over in Mogadishu. So initially I was, like I said, the sergeant of the guard. So I had 22 or 25 guys in my section. And we would do 2 days on guard and then 2 days on react, and what that meant was if there's a convoy, the react guys would do the convoy out in town.
Makes sense.
And then within that we had an even number of DMs and snipers. Each section had a sniper and each section had a couple DMs. And then we also had a guy, 2 guys, one in each section that are going through ARS, So we try to even it out across the board so each section doesn't have one more than the other. And initially it was, you were just a rifleman. I was just, not just, but I mean, I was the sergeant of the guard. I was the section leader, and if they needed a sniper, then I'd run to the roof and pull my M40 out. That was initially, and then eventually something happened where those guys on the roof missed a dump truck size vehicle that had a quad mounted ZSU 23-4 in the back, and they missed it. But one of the corporals of the guard was driving around, coming back from the embassy, coming back to our White House compound, and took a couple pictures of it. So that changed how we did our stuff. And from then on, I petitioned my platoon commander. I was like, hey, sir, there's 6 of us. Let's go through and we'll do 6 on, 12 off. and that's how we rotated as the snipers after that. But one of the days, you're talking about funny stories. One of the days I'm sitting there and I'm like, in the COC, I was like looking at, we had a camera that you could sit there and you can scroll across the compound and see what's going on. And I was like, let me see what the dudes on the roof were doing. So I scroll around, and this dude, two guys up there, Doobie and Tolliver. Doobie's nickname was Nadsat because he kept on getting fucking drug and alcohol things. You got to go to do well, not drug, but alcohol incidents, and have to go to the Navy, alcohol abuse, whatever. Yeah. So we're sitting there, and I zoom the camera around, look at them, and Doobie's a little bit bigger than Tolliver's, a little short guy. And they're like, push, they're you can see them arguing. One pushes the other, and he's like, oh, yeah. And he sprays them with cap stun. And he's like, oh, my eyes. And he's like rubbing his eyes on the sandbag, trying to get the shit out. Like, oh, my God, my eyes. And I'm like, oh, my God, Doobie and Tolliver right it again. But that's just some of the craziness that you see. I guess more of my funny stories are more when I was younger than older, because I was, the gunner's coming or whatever. I go to straighten up, not as much. So they issued us, I don't know, we'll say like 42, cans of capstun. Think of like a higher level of pepper, like a pepper spray kind of thing. So we're out in town, we're sitting there, and they'd have some of their quad cons locked with chains, but you could still open it up. So we'd have Tolliver, the little guy, scoot in there and see what they had in there, what the embassy guys had in there. Like, he's like, oh, dude, we hit the mother load. We're like, what? He's like, I found 2 boxes of capstun. So he pulled those out. We took those, and then we took the ones that they issued us that had like weighed and measured and all that shit, like, to see how much you're spraying. We put that in a box and set it aside. So every time they ask, here you go. Can't be us. Our cans are still the same. But we were spraying the shit out of everybody. Doing convoys, guys could come too close to us, and it's like, and then on those convoys, I would be the last. I was always in the tail vehicle, so I could always tell. They could tell if they're spraying, because I would just always start choking, trying to cough, coming through this cloud of capstun. But so some of the craziness.
I had a warrant officer in Okinawa that. The NBC guy, and he would take your telephone, the old telephones, and he'd take the transmitter off. He put some CS gas crystals in there, and you're on the phone, you're sitting there talking, all of a sudden your nose is starting to run. You're like, God, man. And the guy across from me, he'd be like, oh, yeah, dude, welcome to Okinawa. The allergies are horrible here. And I'm like, God, why my eyes are... Every time I was on the phone, it took about 3 days to figure out that asshole had put CS crystals in my telephone. We had
so when I first got to Somalia, it was me, the other sergeant, our platoon commander, and they put me and the other sergeant in a I don't know, like a trailer that was right next to the gate. We didn't have, because we flew commercial, we didn't have our own weapons, so they gave us 1911 45s that the embassy had for training police.
1911s.
Yeah, so we had me and him had those under our pillow as we're sleeping in this room. And what we didn't know was when we turned our lights on, the room next to us, their lights turned on. So again, we come in all hours, see how the change of the guard goes at different hours. We're like, come back, turn our light on, turn it off, not knowing that it's connected to his. Then one night we're sitting there again. We're in like condition. I think it's condition 2 is what they call it with the 1911. I mean, there's a round in the chamber, but the weapon's on safe.
Right.
And we're sitting there, and here, boom, the door kicks open, and the light comes on. We're like drawing down on this dude, and it's like, oh shit, sorry. Light out, door closes, and we're like, the fuck was that? And we get up, like look around. We didn't hear nothing. The next day, we have a plate note on our door. This is Chief Warrant Officer so-and-so. I'm at the embassy, and I'm an intel guy, but whenever your lights go on, my lights go on. Could you please? It was a nice, polite note saying, don't turn your lights on in the middle of the night, because it turns my lights on too. I don't think he was expecting 2 dudes drawing down on 19 at like 12:30 at night.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, looking down the barrel of a 45 would not be a pleasant experience. Yeah. Holy shit! Yeah. So, what did you like better? Did you like the Barrett? Because tell me about this. I've got a picture of you shooting a Barrett out of a helicopter. I mean, how bitchin' is that? What were you doing?
So in I left Fast Company and I got the 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. We were locked onto the MEU, and the recon platoon didn't want to be the reconnaissance and surveillance for the Maritime Special Purpose Force. So we end up, they were like, oh shit, we'll do that. We'll go through the course. You go through urban sniper course, you go through reconnaissance and surveillance course. And as part of the urban sniper course, we went out to Piney Island and got to fire out of helos. Yeah, we did some other stuff. We shot. So there's one of me on a table with with another guy. Yeah, that one. So that's out at Piney Island too. So full disclosure, I didn't go through urban sniper. I went through the last 2 weeks because I was going through advanced sniper school. For the that ended at the end of the first week. So they were able to get me to go out knowing that I was going to be doing it and all that. So I was able to shoot with them there, and then we were shooting targets that were on a, like not a pulley system, but behind something. So you have a 3D target driving around. So you're trying to practice engaging moving targets other than like a guy walking real slow or whatever. So it was the remote control thing for that portion with the last picture. And then with the Sasser, we shot out of helos.
That's amazing. And
we ended up shooting, it was like 2 or 3 55-gallon drums that were, strapped together. So that's what that was. And that was all to support if the Maritime Special Purpose Force or like the Force Recon guys, that specifically had to go take a ship down. So then we would be, while they're flying in, taking the ship down, we would be up in the helicopter, either with a Sasser or with a 40. And what we ended up finding out was the M16 was the easiest for us because the other one was too magnified. And you're trying to find something on a ship as you're looking through, versus the open sights of the M16.
No kidding. Wow.
But it probably should have been. We never ended up having to execute it, but it probably would have been better to have a higher caliber gun. But the point is you need to be able to dial back the magnification so you can get more of a view of what you're seeing and seeing them in relation to it.
I was always impressed with the Navy SEALs that were on the back of the ship when that Roberts deal went off, and they were like, okay, 3, 2, 1, pow! Drop those guys on a moving ship. And and their boats are moving too. So, wow, good shooting. I don't know what they were using, if they were using M40s or if they were using the Barrett. But
so they have completely different weapon systems. They want to say they use 300 Win Mag is what the Navy uses, and I think the Army's gone to 338 Lapua, and those are. I don't know in comparison to the size of the round, but the trajectory is a little bit flatter. So there's less of a rise and fall as you're going. So you can have like, say, a 500-yard zero, and it's not going to – I can shoot you anywhere between 0 and 500 because it's not going to – I can aim here, and it might rise to here or fall to here, but I'm still hitting center mass without changing the zero.
Gotcha.
Of that. So there's some things that you can do with the different weapon systems to allow you to do that.
And what's your favorite rifle? What do you have? What do you own that is? Do you have a setup similar to what you used in the Marine Corps?
Well, so when I was a squad leader school instructor, this is where I think I got it. I got TBI. So when I was a squad leader school instructor, there was 4 of us and 100 students, and every quarter, each student had to shoot a rocket. So that meant that each instructor stood next to 25 to 30 rockets in a day.
Wow.
This is how many rockets you're supposed to stand next to in a day. So I got, I remember specifically one time, like the whole world shaking for the whole drive home. I was like punch drunk. And so years later, I ended up going to the TBI clinic and got diagnosed with TBI. Yeah. I say all that to say I have a 6.5 Creedmoor, but I can't shoot more than one box without it messing with my head.
Wow.
So I like shooting, and people are like, oh, well, just wear earplugs. Well, it's not how it works. It's the concussion. It's not the sound. It's the invisible wave that comes off. Everything that makes a noise sends off like a concussion, a wave of energy. It just depends on how big or small. I can shoot my pistols and that's okay. But when I'm up shooting next to my head,